They found him alone, slumped forward in his recliner. There were no signs of injury, no cry for help, just a heavy stillness in the room. The TV was still flickering in the background, his robe hung open, and everything felt quiet in a way that only comes after something final. The official report said it was natural causes, but those of us who've seen this before knew there was more to the story. What really happened was a silent, slow breakdown of his body's inner balance, a quiet collapse of his hormones and vitality. Not because of some major illness, but because of something much simpler: neglect. And sadly, this man wasn't alone. Every year, thousands of older men experience the same kind of fading strength, lowered sexual drive, and emotional dullness. All the while, they think they're just doing what's expected, letting go of things they've been told they no longer need. For years, society has told men to stay away from self-pleasure. It's been painted as something childish, shameful, or unnecessary. But after the age of 60, that kind of thinking can come at a real cost. Here's the honest truth: when you stop masturbating in your later years, your body doesn't just hit the pause button, it starts breaking down. Your prostate stops moving fluid the way it should. Your testosterone begins to plummet. Your emotional strength starts to weaken. And by the time you really feel the difference, the damage may already be underway. I'm Dr. Mojit Kara, a board-certified urologist. I've been working with men's health for over 40 years, helping men just like you, retired farmers, veterans, teachers, and grandfathers find their way back to feeling like themselves again. And one thing I've seen time and again is the regret. That quiet, painful regret in their eyes when they realize the habits they were taught to be ashamed of are now hurting them when they need their strength the most. But there's hope. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the for real health consequences that can happen when men stop masturbating in their older years and, more importantly, how to stop those problems before they start. These are simple, practical steps. Nothing complicated. Just real, safe advice I've shared with thousands of my patients to help protect their energy, their sexual health, and their independence. And make sure you stay with me until the end, because the final consequence I'll talk about is one that even most doctors won't bring up, but it's the one that could quietly triple your risk of prostate issues if left unchecked. If you're serious about staying healthy, confident, and in control as you age, you'll want to hear it. Either way, you're welcome here. This is a space for honest talk, without shame, and with answers that matter. Let's begin with the first consequence of giving up masturbation in older age, one that's easy to miss, but can lead to serious problems if left alone. I've seen this more times than I can count. A man in his late 60s or early 70s walks into my office. He's confused. Frustrated? He tells me it's been months since he's had a spontaneous erection. Sometimes even a year. But what really gets to him isn't the performance, it's how suddenly it all seemed to stop. One day, he felt normal. The next, something inside just didn't work anymore. It surprises most men because no one ever told them this could happen. Nobody mentioned that stepping away from sexual activity could make your ability to function slowly fade, just like an unused muscle. Let me put it simply. Your penis isn't just there for looks. It's an active part of your body that needs regular blood flow to stay healthy. After 60, if you go long periods without any stimulation, something troubling can begin to happen. Blood flow slows. Oxygen doesn't get where it needs to go. The tissues inside begin to stiffen, not in a good way, but in a way that causes damage. This can lead to something called fibrosis, nerve damage, and eventually a loss of function that's difficult or even impossible to bring back. This isn't some fancy theory. It's just how the body works. Think of it like your legs. If you stopped using them for 6 months, what would happen? You'd lose strength, balance, even the memory of how to walk. It's the same with your sexual function. After a certain age, it doesn't just wait quietly. If you stop using it, it begins to shut down. And here's the scary part. This decline doesn't come with a loud alarm. It sneaks in. One day, your morning erections are gone. After a while, even touch or fantasy doesn't do much. And eventually, even medications stop working the way they used to because the foundation inside has already broken down. I've had men sit across from me, tears in their eyes, asking if they can get it back. Some do, with intense therapy and real commitment. But others waited too long. They thought giving up masturbation was harmless, even wise. But instead, it was the quiet beginning of a long decline. Now, I want to be clear, this isn't about being obsessed with sex. It's about protecting a vital part of your health, your circulation, your hormones, even your sense of identity. Just keeping a little solo activity in your life, maybe once or twice a week, is often enough to keep the blood flowing, keep the nerves responsive, and remind your body that this function still matters. Because here's the truth, if you don't use it, you really do start to lose it. And when you're older, that loss can be permanent. I've seen it happen, and it's heartbreaking, not because the men wanted to impress someone, but because it chipped away at their self-esteem, their relationships, and their sense of manhood. And what's most painful, it didn't have to happen. It could have been prevented. All it took was consistency, not indulgence, just attention. A small habit that made all the difference. But as serious as losing erections can be, that's just the beginning. Because the next consequence reaches even deeper. It affects your hormones. And when those start to crash, the changes ripple out far beyond the bedroom. It usually starts out small. A man begins to feel like he's just not himself anymore, but he can't quite explain why. He finds it harder to get out of bed in the morning. Maybe he skips his usual walk. Food doesn't taste the same. His mood feels flatter. He's more tired during the day. A little more on edge, a little more distant, and deep down, there's this quiet sense that something important is slipping away, but he can't quite put his finger on it. In my clinic, I've heard men chalk this up to stress, or poor sleep, or simply getting older. But when we dig a little deeper, we often find the same thing at the root, a drop in testosterone. Not just the slow, natural dip that happens with age, but a much sharper fall, often brought on by the complete lack of sexual stimulation. Here's something most people never hear, especially older men. Masturbation, as simple and ordinary as it might seem, is one of the few natural ways to help keep testosterone levels stable without needing medication. It's not about fantasy or lust. It's about biology. You see, when you engage in regular arousal and release, your brain sends out signals that help keep your hormonal rhythm on track. Chemicals like dopamine rise. The hypothalamus, a part of the brain that plays a key role in hormone control, gets activated. And your testicles, even well into your 60s or 70s, get the message: keep producing testosterone. Keep this part of the system running. But when you completely stop, when weeks turn into months without any form of sexual activity, your body gets a very different signal. It starts to believe that intimacy is no longer needed. So it begins to slow things down. And just like that, hormone production drops. Once that cycle begins, it can be hard to stop. Low testosterone doesn't just make you feel tired. It changes how you think and feel. It makes it harder to focus. It steals your interest in things that used to make you feel proud and alive. Your muscles start to weaken. Your bones become more fragile. Depression sets in more easily. And perhaps most seriously, your risk for heart disease and stroke goes up, sometimes dramatically. I've seen this transformation firsthand. Men who once had energy, drive, and spark, men who built careers, raised families, ran businesses, slowly turning into someone even they don't recognize anymore. And it's not because they're sick. It's not because of old age alone. It's because no one told them how important sexual stimulation still is for their hormones, even if it's just with themselves. One man I'll never forget was a retired firefighter. Tough as nails on the outside, but when his testosterone dropped, something changed in him. He sat across from me one afternoon and said, "Doc, I don't even recognize the man in the mirror." That wasn't pride talking. That was sorrow. He wasn't grieving lost youth, he was grieving lost identity. And that's what makes this so serious. Once your testosterone crashes later in life, it can take years and thousands of dollars in therapy, supplements, or treatments just to bring it back. And even then, it doesn't always return fully. But here's the good news. If you keep up a steady, respectful connection with your own body, you can keep those hormones working for you far longer than most people realize. Hormones might be invisible, but their effects touch everything from your energy and confidence to your memory and strength. And while many men only notice when something feels off, the root cause is often hiding in plain sight: the complete loss of sexual activity, which sends your system into an unnecessary slowdown. But we're not done yet. Because while hormones affect your mind and body in deep, far-reaching ways, the next consequence is one you can often feel more directly. In fact, many older men deal with it every day without realizing what's causing it. Let me explain. There's a certain kind of discomfort that men don't always talk about. It's not a sharp pain, it's more of a deep, nagging ache. It might sit low in your pelvis. You might feel pressure when you've been sitting too long. Maybe it's the annoying urge to urinate even when your bladder isn't full. It doesn't hit all at once like a heart problem might. It creeps in slowly, quietly, until suddenly it's interfering with your day-to-day life. And what surprises most men is that the cause more often than not is something they never expected: a backed-up prostate. Your prostate isn't just some idle part of your body. It plays an active role. It produces and stores the fluid that carries sperm. That fluid is meant to move. It's meant to be released. But when you stop masturbating or having sex altogether, especially in your later years, that fluid starts to build up. When it just sits there, it thickens. Pressure builds. Inflammation begins. That's when you start noticing changes, maybe a weaker urine stream, maybe an ache in your lower back, maybe that frustrating need to get up 3 or 4 times a night to pee, even if you just went. These aren't signs of aging alone. Often, they're signs of a congested, irritated prostate. I've seen so many men come in thinking they have bladder issues, only to find out their prostate is inflamed not because of disease, but because it's been ignored. And in many of those cases, the solution isn't pills. It's movement. It's the body's natural way of flushing the system through regular release. But when that process is skipped for too long, things can get serious. Some men develop something called chronic prostatitis, ongoing inflammation that can be painful and very difficult to treat. Others end up needing medical procedures just to find relief. And this isn't just about comfort, it's about preventing far more serious conditions. There's real research, some of it from Harvard, that shows regular ejaculation might help reduce the risk of prostate cancer. The theory is simple. When the prostate is emptied regularly, it clears out waste. But when that fluid is allowed to sit month after month, it may create the kind of environment where inflammation and even cancer cells can grow. I remember one man who hadn't had any sexual activity in almost 2 years. "I just didn't feel the need," he said. "Figured that part of life was behind me." But when his PSA levels suddenly shot up, we ran more tests. His prostate was swollen, congested, and inflamed. He was facing the possibility of a biopsy, something that could have been avoided with something as basic and natural as keeping a little release in his routine. This isn't about encouraging lust. It's about preventing pain. It's about understanding that after 60, your body doesn't stop needing care. In fact, it needs more. And the prostate is one of the most sensitive parts of the male body as we get older. If it's ignored, the consequences aren't just uncomfortable, they can change your whole life. But while prostate issues can keep you up at night and cause real discomfort, the final consequence we'll talk about runs even deeper. It doesn't always show up in a test result. It can't be easily measured, but you feel it often before you even know what's wrong. Let me show you what that looks like. This next part is the quietest change of all and often the most painful. It doesn't show up on a blood test. You can't scan for it, but you feel it in your bones. A fading spark. A slow loss of connection with yourself. A kind of distance, like you're drifting away from the man you used to be. It happens gradually. You stop masturbating because you think you're too old for it. Or maybe because you're not in a relationship. Or you simply tell yourself it doesn't matter anymore. But over time, that choice doesn't just affect your body. It begins to affect your mind, your emotions, even your sense of being alive. I've talked to many men who've told me they feel hollow inside, not from pain, not from illness, but from going months or even years without any kind of intimacy. No touch, no release, not even a moment to reconnect with themselves. And what starts as a quiet decision slowly turns into something much heavier. They begin to feel invisible, unwanted, unnecessary. Most of them don't talk about it. They weren't raised to. They don't know how. But I can see it the way they walk, a little slower than before. The way they avoid mirrors. The way their voices soften when you ask how they're really doing. This isn't about sex. It's about vitality, about joy, about keeping that part of yourself that feels alive and human. Because the truth is, when you give up self-pleasure entirely, you shut down one of the last, most natural ways to feel connected, not just to someone else, but to yourself. And that's a loss, a deep one. For men over 60, that connection becomes even more important. It's what helps keep the mind sharp, the mood balanced, and the heart open. There's real science behind this, too. During masturbation, your brain releases powerful chemicals: dopamine, oxytocin, endorphins. These aren't just feel-good hormones. They help regulate mood, reduce anxiety, and support emotional stability. Without them, it's easy to slip into sadness, isolation, or even depression. In some cases, it can contribute to memory loss and cognitive decline. I've seen men who were once full of life slowly fade into the background. Not because they lost their jobs or their families or their health, but because they stopped connecting with a part of themselves that reminded them they were still here, still feeling, still human. And perhaps the most dangerous part is this: most men never make the connection. They never realize that the emotional numbness they're feeling started the moment they gave up intimacy. By the time they come in for help, the damage has already begun. And fixing it isn't just about taking pills or starting a new routine, it's about rebuilding that quiet, private relationship with themselves. It's about remembering that even in old age, your body still wants to feel. Still wants to connect, still needs care. That part of you didn't vanish when you turned 60 or 70. It just got quieter, and if you listen closely, it's still there, waiting. This consequence, this emotional drift, is the one that breaks my heart the most, because it's the one that steals a man's dignity without him even noticing. It takes away his sense of self, his warmth, his quiet confidence, and leaves behind a shell he doesn't quite recognize anymore. But here's the most important thing I want you to hear. It's not too late. No matter how far gone you feel, no matter how long it's been, you can still come back to yourself. That spark is still there. You can still reconnect with the energy, the strength, the drive you thought was gone. And in the final part of this video, I'll show you how. We're going to go over a few simple, science-backed steps you can take starting today to protect what so many older men have lost. Because the truth is, it's not gone. It's just been waiting for you to come back. Let's finish this together. There's a belief that a lot of older men carry that intimacy, pleasure, and desire are things you grow out of. That at some point, your body is supposed to go quiet. That letting go of this part of yourself is noble, maybe even respectable. But after more than 30 years of working with men in their 60s, 70s, and beyond, I can tell you that belief has cost far too many men their health, their happiness, and their sense of who they are. You've seen how giving up masturbation can lead to the slow breakdown of your sexual function, how it can cause your hormones to crash, how it can inflame and damage your prostate, and worst of all, how it can numb your emotions and disconnect you from your own life. These aren't small changes. These are real, life-changing effects, and they don't come from old age alone. They come from neglect. Quiet, unintentional neglect of a part of yourself that still matters deeply. But it doesn't have to be this way. Your body still remembers how to feel. Your mind still longs to connect. And your health still depends on you caring for all parts of yourself, even the parts nobody talks about. This isn't about lust. This is about life. About preserving the parts of you that make you feel whole, strong, and human. There is no shame in that. None. You don't have to apologize for choosing to care for yourself. If this message has spoken to something inside of you, I hope you take it seriously. I hope you take it personally. Because it is personal. It's your body, your life, your future. And if you're ready to take back control of this part of your health, I'm with you. You're not alone. And you're far from done. If this resonated with you even a little, go ahead and type 1 in the comments. Let me know you're still here, that you still care, that you're still fighting. And if you're not sure, that's okay too. Type 0 and tell me what's on your mind. Either way, your voice matters. And I'm listening.